Hello and welcome to this video, and on this video I'm going to be going through the 10 greatest songwriters of all time, but there is a caveat to this. It's not just the 10 greatest songwriters of all time, it's the 10 greatest living American songwriters of all time. Now, why have I chosen that criteria for this list? It seems very specific and it does knock out people like the Beatles, Lennon and McCartney and all that lot. There's a lot of good songwriters you get taken out when you do that, but you know, the reason is because the New York Times has just come out with their top 30. Their top 30 greatest living American songwriters. Now, I know this because last night I got into bed, put the older, laptop on, see what's going on in YouTube land, and there's Rick Beato, and he's talking about it. Brilliant thumbnail. He's got the word shit in the thumbnail, and I thought he's coming in for the attack, and we love it. So I went to click on it. I thought, no, Andy, don't click on it, because you've got to do this because you need those views. You need them more than Rick. So here I am about to deliver not only what I think are the 10 greatest living American songwriters, but also then I'm going to critique the New York Times list. But I'm going to do it in my way, because what I did was, as soon as I saw that video, although I really wanted to watch it, my desire inside was saying, watch it. I thought, no, don't watch it, Andy. Second order desire, think about the views. And so what I did is I stopped it there, and I got a pen and paper out, and I started to jot down who I thought were the greatest American living songwriters, without seeing anything, without totally unaffected by, Rick Beato or their list or anything really. So I just write them out. And then I worked that list as I would do. And eventually I got my list up, and I also thought, I'm not going to bring in the old Andy Edwards prejudices and all the things I don't like. I'll be as objective as I possibly can. And I conferred with some of the biggest songs of all time, the biggest selling songs of all time. And I also conferred with how many songwriters have got songs in the top 10 greatest songs as decided by Rolling Stone magazine and various other magazines. So I did all that. It took me a while to get my list, and my original intention was just to come here and do the list, but I thought, no, I'm doing this for a reason. It's to critique the New York Times list, trying to see where we agree and where we disagree, and if we disagree, try and work out why we disagree. But also, I may disagree with Rick Beato or agree. I don't know, because I haven't still watched his video yet, you see. So I still haven't done it. So I wrote the list. I then took myself up in bed and I went to sleep. Then, when I woke in the morning, I had from Dream Cymbals this beautiful ride cymbal. My Dream cymbal, Bliss 22-inch flat ride, Paul Vertico signature ride. And so I came here really to play that, and I've just been playing it. It's absolutely beautiful. And so now this cymbal is my new best friend. I've decided to include her in a number of the videos, just to, it might be a bit prejudiced, because I don't think she's going to contribute to the video much, but she does look nice. And so she's there just for aesthetic reasons. And there's nothing wrong with aesthetic reasons, I don't think. Shall I get on with my list, ranked from 10 to 1, who I think are the greatest living American songwriters? And on this video, I am not going to labour the point. I'll just whiz through them. Right? So, at number 10, I've got Smokey Robinson. Smokey Robinson, born around about 1940, he's still alive, but he was writing in that golden age of songwriting before the Beatles, but after the sort of Tim Pan Alley stuff. He was the original writer for Motown until, Holland and Dozier Holland came along, and started to write the songs by which we have grown up listening to. But I think if only... Oh, my bloody phone's playing up now. Sorry about this. There we go. Couldn't get the bloody list on. Smokey Robinson. He wrote, I think, Tears for a Clown is such a wonderful song. It's a great example of Smokey Robinson's songwriting it's soulful and groovy, but it also tells a story and it's very emotive. It's absolutely classic songwriting. So I've got Smokey Robinson at number 10, really as almost a starting point for American songwriting. At number 9, I put down Dolly Parton. I could have put down Willie Nelson. He nearly came into my mind. There was a whole host of writers. I mean, I think Willie Nelson could well be here as well. But I thought, I wasn't too sure whether Willie Nelson is alive or not. I know they say he's alive, but when I look at him, he doesn't look like that. Andy, you're not here to do these stupid jokes. They're not interested in it. You know, whereas Dolly Parton isn't too well at the moment, is she? I mean, she's what is she, 80 years old? But Butterfly is one of the most beautiful songs ever. I Will Always Love You is one of the biggest songs in human history. What else has she written? Jolene. Absolutely wonderful. Doesn't quite make sense, because I think if you went back to Dolly in her heyday and you were having to choose between some ginger girl and Dolly Parton, I'd be going for Dolly Parton. I don't know what she's moaning about. But anyway, Dolly Parton, wonderful. She is as American as apple pie and shooting people with guns. I think it's like Dolly Parton is such she represents country music for me on the list, right? At number 8, you're going to be surprised with this. I've got Donald Fagen. Now, I assume he writes the songs for Steely Dan. I'm not too sure. I don't know if Walter Becker gets involved. I'm sure he does. But anyway, I'll put Donald Fagen down, Steely Dan, basically. Steely Dan, for me, are not brilliant because they have loads of great session players and they play stuff that's really perfect. So they never put a foot wrong, and they have tasty guitar solos where the guitarist could outline the chord changes, unlike most rock guitarists. I'm not that impressed by that. I can go and put a Larry Carlton album or Steve Kahn album on for that. What makes Steely Dan special is that very New York, obtuse, countercultural songwriting approach, which puts an edge on that sound, but also complements that sort of very relaxed LA sound with this edgy sort of beatniky lyrical content. And of course, these songs are incredibly complex. This is very, very sophisticated songwriting. Now, are we going to reward simple songwriting on this list, or are we going to reward complex songwriting? I think there has to be some level of complexity in the songwriting. It needs to be, it needs to have a power and sublimity in it to reach beyond just being, you know, like everybody's doing the locomotion. Now, the reason I mentioned Everybody's Doing the Locomotion is that was written by another great American songwriter, Carole King, who I've got at number 7. But she, a little bit like Smokey Robinson, wrote a whole host of incredible songs throughout the 60s, some very poppy, some very deep. Of course, her Tapestry album is almost the perfect album in terms of songwriting. Every song's a knockout. She brings a very... how would you describe Carole King's writing? It's like calling Burt Bacharach middle of the road. It's not middle of the road. Or if that's the middle of the road, it's a very sophisticated middle of the road. She is able to utilise the storytelling aspect of harmony to react to the lyrical content. So rather than just having a nice melody with some nice chords, you feel like the songs go off and they go around corners as they negotiate these chord changes, which seem to provide a very varied, sort of almost like roller coaster ride through these lyrics, which are often quite joyful and about love. We're not in the Steely Dan area of songwriting, but I think she's such a strong songwriter. Now, a lot of this is I will put a song on and it just hits me. It hits me because of a twist or a lyrical edge or the way the singer's singing it. And that's so important as well. And I don't hear that in modern songwriting, but I hear it in Carole King. At number 6, I put this guy quite high up. I don't quite get him, but I know he's sold millions of albums. When you start looking at classic songs, he's written so many that appear in top 10s and stuff like this. He comes out, I think, of the Bob Dylan folk singer tradition. He's a rocker, but he's also very close to people like Pete Seeger. It is, of course, at number 6, Bruce Springsteen. And I think even I can tell that Born to Run is a great song, you know. So I have had to be a little bit objective. I'm trusting you lot that do like Bruce. He has to be on the list, doesn't he, of greatest living American songwriters, Bruce Springsteen. Maybe even more higher up than that. At number 5, I've put the great Jimmy Webb. That's a little bit of a personal choice, but I think he wrote stuff like Up, Up and Away. Up, up and away in my beautiful balloon, which is a song that came out when I was born, and apparently this was a song I liked when I was a kid. See, I had good ears, you see. But tunes like Galveston and especially Wichita Lineman, which I think is now becoming the new God Only Knows. And of course, God Only Knows was the new Yesterday, wasn't it? So now that's taking over as being the greatest song in the world. Now I take a little bit of credit for that, because I did a video saying Wichita Lineman is the greatest song ever written, and then about 2 weeks later Rick Batter comes out and he does a video with exactly the same thing. Now I'm sure he said he didn't watch my video, but I bet he did, so I have no compunction of copying him on this one. He owes it. Right, so Jimmy Webb, incredible, and he would get on the list just for Wichita Lineman, which is perhaps the greatest American song ever written. At number 4, I've got Paul Simon, not only for his solo stuff, but for Simon and Garfunkel. That, to me, that's like America's Beatles. And the thing with Simon and Garfunkel, if you go back and look at Sound of Silence and the early songs, we're really coming out of 1965. This is the point when the Beatles moved over to being more serious. Simon and Garfunkel are there right at the beginning, and they traverse a line that goes from just being acoustic guitar and 2 vocals harmonising beautifully, an extension of the Everly Brothers, which is almost like an extension of, Buddy Holly and a whole bunch of it comes out of rock and roll. The Beach Boys are there as well, and I think Brian Wilson could also be on this list. I haven't got him on here because he's dead. That's why. See, I kept putting people on it. I just did it then realising they're dead and I had to take them off. All realising they were American, which is what happened with Joni Mitchell. I put her on second straight off. I thought, that's obviously number 1. Then Joni's going to be number 2. Then realised she's Canadian, but she's honorary American. But like Paul Simon, and I mean, do I have to list all the songs? He would get in it for Like a Bridge Over Troubled Water. It's one of the greatest songs ever written. When you listen to Like a Bridge Over Troubled Water, even though it's a metaphor, I see the bridge. Do you see the bridge? I picture the bridge. Still crazy after all these years. Beautiful. Even You Could Call Me Al. Full of humour, irreverence, but he could also be very moving. At number 4, I've got Edward and Brian Holland. They're the guys that are still alive after the Holland Dozier Holland thing. And of course, we grew up listening to all the bloody songs they wrote, Baby Love and all that sort of Motown stuff. I'm not going to go through them all here. You can look it up if you don't know who they are. But they are perhaps the greatest living pop songwriters. I'd be vying with Smokey Robinson. There's a certain thing that they do which was then supplanted in terms of soul and black American music by the guy I've got at number 2. So the guy I've got at number 2 on my list is Stevie Wonder. It could almost be number 1. If I put my personal choice in, Stevie Wonder would be the greatest American songwriter that's alive. He's up there. It's just, as soon as Motown gave him the keys to the kingdom and said, you can play all the instruments now and you can write your own songs, he then goes on a spree of making the greatest albums ever made. No one ever did it. He goes on a spree. I've got a video ready to go. I did so much research into Stevie Wonder. It's such a huge thing. I don't know where to start with it. Do I spend a week on him? But that run, Music of the Mind, Inner Visions. I can't pull them out of my head. I knew I wouldn't be able to. And the albums before that, and even going back to the earlier albums where he started to discover his songwriting chops, the guy is just, and they're sophisticated. This is the thing, right? So who have I got at number 1? I have the most important musician in the history of rock and roll, the most important artist in the history of rock and roll. It's Bob Dylan. I don't think we'd even be considering this list if it wasn't for Bob Dylan. We would think of songwriters still as being, I don't know, some bloke sat in a room, Tin Pan Alley, writing a song and giving it to Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra to sing. And a songwriter writing for somebody else and pretending they're like a 14-year-old teenage boy or girl and trying to get into the mind. That was pop songwriting. That's what Holland Dozy Harlan do. That's what Smokey Robinson does. But the idea that you're the author and what you're singing about is what you're singing about, that comes from Dylan. He amalgamated that folk aesthetic, he politicised it, he became the voice of a generation, and then he electrified it. And then musically, he let the musicians operate in recording studios in a certain way, bringing in a much straighter rock beat. So when you get to 64, 65, and he's writing stuff like a Rolling Stone, that song sounds like it could have been written in 1975. It's the sound of rock music. He's the most important guy. Bob Dylan needs to be number one. So that there is my list of the 10 greatest living American songwriters. I didn't want to do 30 because those videos are hard to deliver and you'll be sat through so many, you'll be confused. But what we have is we've got 10 here that should be on their list. I wonder who is on, where they're placed, and I wonder who isn't on and who is, but in terms of the New York Times, seem as better of any of these on that list. All right, so let's do that now. So I now have the list here with me. I'm going to go quickly through this list, giving an opinion on what I think. Then I will see who's missing from my list and ask the question why they are missing. I'm having a quick look at this. This is the first time I've really looked at it. I wasn't going to go and give my bloody bank details to the New York Times, which was what they wanted for, just to look at the bloody article. So I've asked I asked ChatGTP to give me the list, which is it has given me, but it's put it into a strange order. It says this is not the ranking order, but I don't know what order it's in. And I don't know whether they did do it in a ranking order. I don't know. Anyway, do you want to see what they've got? So the first one I've got, I don't know if this is top of the list or not. I'll go top to bottom whether it is. Nile Rodgers, the guitarist and main songwriter with Chic, who went on to produce a whole bunch of different artists. Nile Rodgers is he's another disco artist, and he's fantastic. All right, Rod Temperton from Heatwave, another great disco artists. And then you got the Michael Jacksons, Quincy Jones, you got Earth, Wind and Fire. They're all absolutely great. Now, what happened in the early 1980s, there was an interest in that sort of group in amongst a bunch of artists, especially British artists, that sort of fell in love with American sort of disco music and wanted to bring that aesthetic in. And so they hired Nile Rodgers as a producer, most notably David Bowie for the Let's Dance album. Now, that album was a very popular album, but it wasn't a classic Bowie album. I don't profess to know about David Bowie, but from then on, Nile Rodgers had a slightly different perception, I think. And then recently he was rehabilitated by working with Daft Punk. That's quite a long time ago now. But since then he has acquired a certain level within the industry where he's seen as being a giant, one of the great musicians. And for me, he is great and I love Chic, but he is one of many. And it's really odd the way this pans out, that certain people are held in such great regard. And yet somebody like Rod Temperton, who was, objectively greater, who is now dead, British, doesn't quite fit the stereotype, So Nile Rodgers, I don't see as being an incredible songwriter. I think he's a great rhythm guitarist, and I think he is a great producer. That's what he is, not a great songwriter. And this begs the question, and I am going to do a Philosophy Sunday video this Sunday, which goes deeper into this when I ask the question, what is a song? Because once you know what a song is, then you can decide who's a great songwriter. I don't see Nile Rodgers as servicing the song so much, but other aspects within music. Are there other things in music? Well, I believe there is. And looking at this list, I think the people who have made this list have fallen for a sort of cliched way of thinking they aren't able to question the basic philosophy which is underpinning their idea of what quality is, because they're music critics or they're bloody normal journalists. They don't know what clue they're talking about. And I will address that on this video, but if you really want to see me go deep into this, come here on Sunday and I'll have a good go at it. Right, the next one we got on the list is Lucinda Williams. I don't know who that is. Now you might be going, oh, Andy, oh my God, you don't know who Lucinda Williams is. Or you might be going, yeah, I don't know who she is. I'm just being honest. I don't know who she is. I would have thought to get onto this list that someone with the interest in music that I have, I'd at least sort of heard of them. If I haven't heard of her and I'm in my little box and bubble where I don't know about these people, that's something that I'm going to have to address, I suppose. Or maybe these culturally just aren't quite reaching everybody in the same way as Freak Out by Chic does, you know. The next one they've got is Stevie Wonder. Well, we got that one right. He was my number 2, without a doubt. Then we've got Jay-Z. Jay-Z, what's Jay-Z? Is he a great songwriter? No. Is he a great rapper? Not particularly. Jay-Z is a great businessman, and there's a whole bunch of people that's come out of the rap community that are great businessmen, and he's quite a ruthless businessman, I think. How anyone would think he's a great songwriter. Now, are rap tracks great songwriting? Right? I would argue that they're not, in the same way that I would argue that A Love Supreme by John Coltrane is not great songwriting. It's something else. Or Beethoven's Fifth Symphony is not great songwriting. A song is something else. And sort of black race consciousness poetry set to beats is another music style altogether. So it demeans rap in a way to say this is great songwriting. And if somebody approaches it, as many of you are probably thinking, if I said, oh, this is a great song, you know, I Like to Move It, Move It, what an incredible song. Now, I Like to Move It, Move It is a great track, you know, In the Club by 50 Cent, a great track. Is it great songwriting? No. If you approach it trying to use the same parameter that you would be, you know, assessing Joni Mitchell, you're going to come out thinking, well, what the hell is this? It needs a different set of criteria to judge. And there isn't the intellectual. Now, this is the thing that's going to come out of here. The reason why this list is so ridiculous, the reason why these videos work, is because people know there's a discrepancy there. People tune in to see us criticising this list. There is a want and a need for people like me to come out and criticise this list. It's about the generation divide. It's about quality against their sort of, you know, sort of shallow view of it all, right? What is the fundamental problem here? Because, you know, I haven't watched the Rick Beato video. I don't know whether he dealt with this thing. Fundamentally, what we're dealing with here is the idea of musical literacy and education, and whether you think that is a thing, right? Is it that someone who would be talking about art in the New York Times would know about art, right? Someone who was talking about philosophy would have read philosophy, and he would have a deeper knowledge, or she would have a deeper knowledge of philosophy, and we would sort of trust them to have the job for that. Do our music critics have that understanding of music? Or is there a belief that having a music critic, a pop music critic that understands harmony and production and the history of music and jazz improvisation and notation and arrangement and all these things, having someone who knows about that, that sort of is bad? So we end up with a list made by people who really have no criteria to make the judgments, and they have no knowledge on which to base it upon, right? And so people like me, or say a Rick Beato, or whoever it is, when we come to do this, you've watched our videos, you go, Andy, I don't agree with anything he says, Andy's this and that, I know he's this and that, but he does know about his music, and he does love it, we know that. So that's why you want to see what I think. You know, I am not going to criticise Jay-Z, but he's a great businessman. And then for the last 20 years, that's all music has been about, is being great at business and promotion. That's what it's become about. The next one they've got on the list is Paul Simon. Great, we got him. Followed by Taylor Swift. Now, Taylor Swift I knew would be on this list. The idea that she has written a song anywhere near The Sound of Silence, you know, or Bridge Over Troubled Waters, you know, the idea that she has written a song that's on the same level as Graceland. You know, and I'm not a huge Paul Simon fan, but what I have heard, I absolutely love. He is something else. What has Taylor Swift written that has what Bridge Over Troubled Water has? Which is an everyman song. It speaks to absolutely everybody. It paints a picture in your mind of a situation which is illustrated, and it's like, almost like a spiritual which beckons you to overcome all your problems, whatever they are. Right? Whatever they are. And then we have Taylor Swift, you know, who's a woman in her 30s writing songs as though she's like a 17-year-old girl with the petty trials and tribulations, which I'm sure resonate with other teenage girls, but it's not on the same level. Sorry, Taylor, it's not on the same level. Then we've got Brian and Eddie Holland, right? So got that one right. Then after that, they've got Missy Elliott. Missy Elliott is a great female rapper. She was one of the first female rappers. She didn't fall into what has become this sort of misogynistic sexual stereotype, fake empowerment that you see with the Cardi B's and Nicki Minaj's. She didn't conform to that. But the genius of her was her relationship with Timbaland, the producer. Those songs are great because of the production and because of what Missy Elliott represents and the fact she's a great rapper. They're not great songs. Sorry, I just don't think they're great songs. I think we go down the wrong path to think that. The next one on the list is Lionel Richie. Now, I missed Lionel Richie. I never thought about him once. And I think he could well be, if he was in the top 10, without a doubt, definitely top 20. A really great songwriter, you know, skilled, old school, knows his jazz harmony, you know, he's got a great voice, you know, and also the thing with Lionel Richie is he survived in the 1980s when everyone else was like bloody Prince and Michael Jackson and Madonna, all young people looking great, and there he looked like a bloody sort of, you know, with a big long face, you know. You know, Lionel Richie walks into the bar and he walks up, the bartender says, you know, why the long face? That's an adaptation of the joke about a horse walks into a bar. Anyway, I didn't do it very well, but it made me laugh. Yeah, Lionel Richie should be on there. We got Dolly Parton next. Yes, we got her, big tick. Then after that, we've got Young Thug. I have a vague idea of Young Thug is. I don't know. What am I supposed to say about that? Young Thug, that's the way music's changed, hasn't it? Really. You go back 40 years, who's the best songwriter in the 1980s? Who are we dealing with? It's Lionel Richie. What's his name? Lionel Richie. What band was he in? He was in a band called the Commodores. Oh, that's a nice name for a band. Yeah, Commodores are really great band, you know. Really funky, but they did, you know, once, twice, three times a day. What's a great song, isn't it? Now, our great songwriters are called Young Thug. Then we've got Diane Warren. Now, I know Diane Warren is... Who the hell's Diane Warren? She's like... Is she some sort of pop songwriter that's been around for a while? I feel like I should know her, and yet I don't. Then we've got Josh Osborne, Brandy Clark, Shane McAnally, counted as the Nashville Trio. I don't know who these people are. I have got so much jazz rock. I'm not saying they're bad, but I don't know who they are. Right? Fiona Apple. Yeah, great. There's a whole slew. Why Fiona Apple? Right? Why not Tori Amos? Is she not American, or is she on the list but we haven't got her? Is Tori Amos... Tori Amos has a whiff of being Canadian to me. So I don't know. Don't know what to say. Fair enough, don't know. Then we got Babyface. Now, Babyface, that's the bloke who did the... you're watching an old man struggling here. See, old Rick Beato, he'll know all these, won't he? And if he doesn't know any, he would have looked them up. But I haven't done that. Here, you see. I know who Babyface is. He's the one who did the Super Bowl thing, didn't he? I love that. It's brilliant. You know, has he written something that's equivalent to Woodstock like Joni Mitchell? I don't think he has. Maybe he has. I missed it. Stephen Merritt. Who are these people? Romeo Santos. Then we got Carole King, right? Then we've got Outkast, Andre 3000 and Big Boy. Now, actually, they're such a talented group, those two, right? They're very, very talented. And they do write songs. And I think those songs are pretty good. And they change the nature of rap. They're not really rap. I would not have a problem with them cropping up in the top 30. And also, I'm very conservative, that I think someone's going to be around for a while before you can stick them on one of these lists. They do need to be around for 10, 15, 20 years. So you can make the judgment, because you know in 20 years' time, people won't even know who half of these people are. Right, so keep going. There's a lot here. Mariah Carey. Is she a songwriter? Did she write songs, Mariah Carey? What song did she write that's so great? Name me a song that she's written. Don't get it. Willie Nelson, there he is. That's good. I'm glad he's on. Kendrick Lamar, right? I mean, you know that I love To Pimp a Butterfly. I've gone on about how great that album is. He's an incredible rapper. His vision is great. He's a bit of a potty mouth, and he does go on about stuff a little bit. And he does feel sorry for himself. I do get the vibe of, all millionaire rapper feels like he's had a bad deal. I don't know. He's not a great songwriter. There is some. We have to define what the song is. Valerie Simpson, to a certain extent, yeah. Bob Dylan, yeah. Now, he's on there. Lana Del Rey, no. I think Babyface, I'd got confused with Bad Bunny because he's on there. We got Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. They're the producers that did Janet Jackson. No. The Dream, no. And then we've got at the bottom Bruce Springsteen and Smokey Robinson. So who did they miss off my top 10? Now, the way I did this, I did a top 10. So we could give them the benefit of doubt that these people should be cropping up in their top 30. So who's not in there is Donald Fagen. He's not in there. So is Donald Fagen, let's just pick the worst one on this list. I'm going to go, I don't even know who he is, but I'm going to go with Young Thug. So let's use Young Thug as our modern benchmark, all these modern people they brought in. Who's the best songwriter out of Young Thug and Donald Fagen? Who's the best songwriter out of Young Thug and Carole King? All right. But apart from that, and who's the best songwriter out of Young Thug and Jimmy Webb? If we take Young Thug's greatest song, his most well-known song, I ain't got a clue what it is. But whatever that song is, if you know what it is, great. Is it better? Tell me in the comments, is it better than Wichita Lineman? All right. Now, I've got 3 missing here. That is actually, I've got to be honest, this is a lot better than I thought it would have been. So what they've done is they managed to hit those ones. But the fault with this is in the lower echelons. And I think the fault really lies with the omissions that come from bands rather than singer-songwriters. Because when I think of a singer-songwriter, I think of Jackson Browne, or who else would I think of? Tim Harding, Harry Nilsson. So they're all songwriters, and David Crosby would be another one, incredible songwriter. All these ones, you're going, well, none of those are on, and that's just off the top of my head. But also the band songwriters. So I would be thinking 1980s in terms of rock, you've got Metallica. Now Metallica, there's a video of them and they've been interviewed, and Elton John comes on, and Elton John congratulates their songwriting. James Hetfield looks like he's going to cry. The fact that Elton John, he knows more about songwriting than me, and the fact that he knows that the difference between Metallica and all the other thrash metal bands is the songwriting. Lars Ulrich might not be the best thrash metal drummer on the planet. Kirk Hammett might not be as good as Marty Friedman, but they're better songwriters, and those songs have stood the test of time over the last 45 years. So we lose Metallica for this. And what we've got here, we have got stuff coming from what I would call the new pop music, which has come out of urban music, out of rap. Okay? Now, I haven't dealt with something here on this video, but I'm going to finish up dealing with it. What I think is actually going on here, because I'm sure what I've said will be chiming with anybody else looking at the list. I'm sure I've said stuff that's chiming with what Rick's said, but I need to offer something that comes from me, and it's this. What we've got going on here is a phenomenon, generation gap phenomenon. So people my age and older, we grew up in a time where music had a different cultural importance. Okay, and I'm one of those guys, anyone who watches this channel, we err towards the more musician end of it, and I champion that. Right? I will take the mickey out of Lou Reed, I will take the mickey out of Bruce Springsteen. But don't misunderstand me, Van Morrison, Bruce Springsteen, Lou Reed are all brilliant songwriters. I can listen to them. When I listen to these people, I have to adopt a different mindset to understand it. Now, my friend, the Vinyl Vulture, was here yesterday, and we were playing different songs and going through different bands. And although he's a muso like me and he loves all the jazz rock and jazz fusion, I noticed when I was saying, what did you think to this? And it was a band, he was reading the lyrics. So he was weighing the lyrics and then how the music related to the lyrics. Now, that relationship can be very strange. So if we put an Earth, Wind and Fire album on, that Earth, Wind and Fire is incredible songwriting, but it's incredible songwriting in a sort of more old-fashioned way. Incredible music, great lyrics that fit the song and tell a story which is quite simple about being in love, or it might be in Earth, Wind and Fire's case, meeting an alien from Jupiter or whatever it is they're singing about. But we don't get that deep emotional exposing the soul thing that we would get with a Joni Mitchell, for example. Joni Mitchell is often seen as being the great songwriter because of the way she exposes her inner soul. In the UK, we have Kate Bush. I think Kate Bush is one of the greatest songwriters in history. And she doesn't expose her soul, although she does it in a way, but she does it by almost play acting and taking on the roles of other people. That's what makes her great. So there is a criteria, I believe, that we can approach songwriting with. And that criteria is to weigh the lyrics against the music and look for the depth and profundity that comes out within that. It's not poetry, right? And it's not just purely instrumental music. There's a profundity, a feeling that gets in your soul. And for me, songwriting is better than instrumental music because it's a balance of the great dialectic. Music tends to slop around being very about feelings and emotion, very abstract, pure sensation. And the thing that art needs to ground it, which is the story, is the humanity often comes from the human voice in there combined with what they're singing about. Our generation, rock music was incredible because it's suddenly combined what we could call folk music or low music, not high art music, but it combined that with a profundity in the lyrics which spoke for a certain generation that wanted things to change and were willing to reach out to an alternative voice to look for wisdom. Bob Dylan's fundamental great thing he did is exactly what the Beatles did and what Jimi Hendrix did. What they all did was go, look at this American folk music here that's emerged out of the ether. If you go back to it, this has a profundity to it. And this combines with a sort of postmodernist view where you're going, listen to this song by Charlie Patton. This guy was just travelling from place to place. He never made any money, put a few records out, but he's speaking of a reality, an alternative reality, which isn't the voice of the elites. Now, the problem with this is as soon as people realised it was there, the elites went there. And they started pointing at it, going, look at this, look at this. So the reason why we think that Robert Johnson and Charlie Patton and Blind Lemon Jefferson, but also Jelly Roll Morton and all these artists are great, was because there was some educated middle class person pointing at it, whether it was John Hammond or whether it was Alan Lomax or whether it was Bob Dylan or even Woody Guthrie. There was a finger pointing at it. So the elites were there, but they're pointing at it and go, this stuff, you've got to listen to this stuff. And that idea, which is great, because suddenly we're able to go, well, what do the gay people think? What do the black people think? What is the voice of the street? What are they saying? That becomes an absolute. It becomes a dogma. Okay? As pop music develops, there's a catharsism there where people are now singing about all sorts of awful things. And kids love it. You know, it's like kids are buying in the 1950s black rhythm and blues artists that are singing about all sorts of dodgy things, sexually violent. They're into all of this. This is what they're into. And they aren't thinking of it in a profound level. They're just going, oh my God, this is really cool. I was like it. I love Black Sabbath. They were heavy. And at the same time, he was talking about Satanism and all sorts of stuff. Now, as you get older, you realise they were almost like warning you against it. And it was actually very clever. But I did not care about that when I was a kid. I wanted my heavy metal bands to be real Satanists. When Venom came out, I thought they are actual Satanists. They're not just scared of the bloody devil like Ozzy. They're actual Satanists. And that ends up with your black metal bands that are actual Satanists and are killing each other. Exactly the same thing happened with rap. Rap is like this social conscious, race conscious, jazz poetry set to music. It escapes the mainstream of rock music. It then infiltrates it. It becomes the biggest music form in the world. And at the end of the 1980s, same as when the black metal's emerging, you've got rappers going, this is what it's like. I'm singing about killing a cop because that is the reality. And suddenly you have this postcard from the, you know, from the underground, from the edge, and all the people are peering in, and all the little white middle class kids in the UK are listening to it, listening to their Ice Cube albums and going, whoa, well, they're talking about shooting this thing, and they keep swearing, they're talking about dealing drugs and drive-bys, and they buy into that. And then that is then the industry, which has just got no morality whatsoever. It's just about making money. Goes, yeah, well, start churning that out, churn it out. So what's happened here is the idea that there can be something of worth in these simple folk forms, in these voices from the other side, that has atrophied into a dogma. And these educated music critics that are just an extension of your Bob Dylans and Alan Lomaxes, these metropolitan educated types who are going, oh, you've got to check out Kendrick Lamar's. Oh, he's spitting truth, isn't he? You know, and he may well be, he may not be. It could be all sorts of things. But that dogma, right? Distrusts anybody that comes along saying, well, no, there is an absolute quality. There is taste. There is the fact that Joni Mitchell's songwriting is way more advanced and more beautiful and greater than Kendrick Lamar's rapping. There's something else going on there. And maybe you could evaluate that and try and describe what that is. But it's not great songwriting. And they will come back and be going, well, no, Andy, you don't understand it. It is your classification of what a song is too narrow. That's the other thing. All the boundaries have to be broken down. All the standards have to be questioned, right? The only person you shouldn't trust is a white male, middle-class, middle-aged man. If he's saying something, distrust what he's saying. You're right, Kevin. I'll come and see you in a minute, mate. And so I think it's not the fact that these ideas are bad, it's the fact that they've atrophied. And in doing that, there is, it's like an artistic cultural relativism being applied to everything now. And so an artist that is successful, and these artists are successful because the music industry changed. It changed about 20 to 25 years ago when the mechanism of money making changed. Now the money is made through this. You're part of the advertising campaign. And so if you're running an advertising campaign, you want somebody like Babyface or Young Thug to be fronting that advertising campaign, right? And in that, they become, the song doesn't become important anymore, all right? The song does not become important anymore. That's the key. Now, everything I've said up until now, I had in my head. But talking it through in front of you, that's the conclusion I've arrived at. How do you assess great songwriting when we are now living in an era where the song doesn't matter anymore? It doesn't. It doesn't work in the same way. Right? There was something about that time. There was something about a generation that wanted to proclaim how different they were to the generation before. The very idea that you do that through a song There's a film called, what's it called? It's a cartoon, and it's about Dracula. You know the one I mean. Oh, come on, Andy, what's it called? Hotel Transylvania. And you've got Dracula and Frankenstein. They're all the old monsters, right? And they have a party for the daughter. The daughter's young, you see, and she's got this boyfriend, and he's not a vampire. So they want to have a party. This has always struck me, and I've never mentioned it on the channel, so I'm glad to do so. So they decide to have a party. So all the old guys like us, they put together this band, and there they are strumming away. And it sounds like Radiohead. And the young people are going, what the hell's this? It's all emotional, gut-wrenching. Let's focus on the song and see what it's about and express our inner soul and how unhappy we all are. Right? And they sit there all dreary and they go, no, we can't do that. And they wipe it away. And then they just go for the pure hedonistic joy of just having a dance beat and jumping around. Now, those tracks can be great. And that's where rock and roll started, with those. Right? But this is not great songwriting. And that is why on this list, no one's going, well, what about, and reeling off the rock and rollers. Now, they did write great songs, but it's not the same. This is the legacy of Bob Dylan. It's his genius, which is now atrophied. The bloke now is in his 80s. He will pass away at some point. We will all pass away at some point. And this generation will mark their difference in the obvious differences, the generational differences that exist. And those are the very fact that I am of a certain age going on about great songwriters and saying how great Dylan was, or David Crosby, or bloody Led Zeppelin, or whatever it is. That's the very thing this youth should be rebelling against the idea of the song. You stick the song in the bin. You stick it in the bin. That's what you do. Your carrier of information is the meme. Or whatever it is, the kids in, it's none of my business. We're all on our way out. So this idea that the generation divide is the reason for this, that's totally right. The idea that what I'm talking about in terms of the history of art, in terms of culture, what I'm saying is true. These are great songwriters. The songwriters of the classic period of rock and roll from 1962 to around about, I'd say, 1999, that period is incredible. But it is now passing into the past, and we know how great they are. And it now becomes a thing where you're trying to explain its brilliance because its cultural cache is no longer relevant. They go into the museum. They get boxed up, they get polished off, they go, look at this, isn't this wonderful? And the industry, which is dying at the moment, what we have here, the reason why this is a bit dodgy and why you're here wanting me to slate it is because these people don't understand that. That's really what it is. They don't understand it. And we know that. You don't understand it, you youngsters. Especially those who value something that I know is countercultural and profound, that I'm trying to push on my channel, is as we exit this postmodernist era of rock and roll, we go into this new world, we are going to have to actually re-evaluate what we see as quality. And I think music, what I love very much, and I believe will survive, has to let go of these sort of postmodernist, post-identity politics view of what is virtuous or what is quality. You have to let go of those. You have to actually embrace a much more solid and negotiated and argued set of criteria of what makes music great. We have to put it into question again. I still want to be involved in that discussion, and I think that's why this discussion is important. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, put a like on it. If you want to see some more, subscribe. If you want to join my Patreon, where you'll see these videos before anyone else, well, some of them when I get a chance to actually upload them, and you'll see unedited videos and exclusive content, plus 2 or 3 years now of content. You'll never get to the back end of the content that's on my Patreon if you pay. But you can become a free member as well, get access to like literally thousands of articles, not literally thousands, that's a lie, literally hundreds of articles for free as well. You can become a member here as well, get a very similar thing, slightly different, or you can put some money in my PayPal tip jar. Some of you might have noticed that I have got a little clip-on microphone. I'm testing it out today. I had the choice of spending my YouTube PayPal tip jar money on a new tooth because I chipped my tooth. Right, I had it filled, it dropped out, I've gone back again. They weren't going to charge me, but I said to the lady, do you really think this is worthwhile? Or does it give me a sort of, you know, rough sort of look that I might need at my age, just to look like I might be a little bit, you know, even though I broke it off biting my nails in a fit of anxiety, but it gives me a bit of an edge, you see. So I haven't got the filling done. You'll be able to track that it was not there. There was a crack. Then I had the filling, then it dropped out. Now you're going to see this forever. This is the new look, Andy. But I do have a microphone paid for by you lovely viewers who put some money in. I thought, right, and that money is what I spend on the gear. The rest of it is spent on the rent, looking after my kids, keeping them in all the bloody things they want, McDonald's and bloody clothes, and all that type of stuff. But we go forward, don't we? So if you want to know what microphone I got, give me a bit of advertising. I got a Rode clip-on lavalier microphone. It's not one of them fancy ones that does it on Bluetooth. It's on a bloody wire. See, I'm old school. And if you're old school too, you probably agreed with what I thought. But if you're not, you might have a problem with it. Stick it in the comments. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching.